Hello and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Overlap Rugby podcast. I'm Daragh. That's Shane.
Hello.
This is episode. I changed up our intro, because our set is sort of changed up.
Mixing it all
the
up.
Flags are there. That's there. Bod's there. Bod's never leaving.
He stays.
Bod stays. But everything's different, and the reason is that we're experimenting with one microphone instead of two.
Yeah.
New audio system. Shane here has been editing the last few podcasts and is not happy with the audio quality, so we're trying something new.
Indeed.
Would like to hear back on whether or not that's a success, but we're
one
trying
of the concerns we're going to try and not do things like touch the table or scratch your
the
things.
difference is
trying to...
when you're using one mic, the difference is it's probably going to pick up loads of background sound, and this room that we're in here is not insulated at all, so there is possibly going to be noise coming from outside.
Yeah, there are people pottering around.
So that's going to be frustrating, but
we will power through though.
We'll power through, and hopefully the audio in general will be better.
Brief aside.
Aside, not a good way to start. If you're new to the show, it's not all just talking about the logistics of podcasting. It's actually a rugby podcast, and that's why we're going to talk about this week, the week of whatever, the 21st of September is when we're shooting this, the Thursday, after a monumental weekend in
cross continents,
in rugby championship is where I'm starting.
It was the big ones. The international games were down there, and it was such a moving weekend in terms of we kind of know more now about where everyone's at.
We're going to start with the All Blacks and the Springboks, and I think it's time for this segment a segment that we haven't yet done, but I think is a fair segment to call the sort of props to Shane segment. Shane has seen this coming for months upon months when the Springboks, when it was all coming sort of building back up, and I was kind of getting on board and everyone was getting on board and it looked good and they were unbeaten and they were beating France and they were putting some good systems together, and the Lions got to the Super Rugby final again, and there was a promise to it, but I think we all knew on some level that there were things that they were doing that were just wrong, and that could be exploited by a ruthless All Blacks team, and you stuck to your guns the whole way through as everything was going on and believed thoroughly that when the Springboks met the All Blacks this year that this is exactly what would happen. So talk us through that, I guess.
That it's no sure. I'm not mad about patting myself on the back, but you can go back and watch the podcast. I've just not been convinced by this Springbok team at all, and sure, even one of the first videos we did on this podcast was when we chopped up from a part of the podcast going like, is this the end of the Springboks after last year? And I haven't seen any systemic change that would remedy what's going on, and as well as that, just key personnel. I think the decision making is wrong in terms of who's there. I think there's a better side available to them, even without the Pollard and Lambie, and some of the crisis at 10 is still a real thing, but I still think there's a better side available to that coaching ticket that they're not using. There are just too many glaring holes, namely the wingers. The wingers in particular are just like two empty jerseys, given the tradition, like what traditional Springbok teams are so good at from their wingers' perspectives, being like they have all the grunt up front and they're very attritional to play against. They're tough to play against. Their out half is stoic, but also their wingers are very pacey and world class, and they're able to take those chances, be it off set piece, strike plays or something. But when it comes to a World Cup season, and if you're talking about a World Cup Springbok side, which is a legit thing and it's a different thing from a Rugby Championship side, like this is just nowhere near it. And to watch the Lions play against facile competition all throughout the Super Rugby and run in tries where, as you pointed out before, like you'll watch a thing and it's like the first thing that happens is the out half throws a shite pass and you're looking at it going like, oh, what the hell, catches it behind his ear, turns around and then makes a break and goes 70 yards up the pitch, and you're just going, hang on, wait, what? And yet while that's happening week in, week out, it's very easy to convince yourself that the systems that you put in place are what's creating those moments, where it's really not. It's just terrible defence and mistakes, and you're feeding off mistakes, and then when you're put in a position where you're against a side that's not making those mistakes, not allowing for those mistakes, and just gets capitalised. I think
the other thing that happened really, that sort of a chance thing that really put a sort of negative blueprint setting them up to fail this year was the Lions. Obviously were so dominant this year, but every big game that they played was in Ellis Park, in Johannesburg, at altitude, and as a result the pace was slower, and teams, like you could notice like teams not being more averse to the physicality, being more averse to the sort of running
it's
game that
easy
they
to
were
start
playing.
thinking that you just have these monster men that are capable of swatting them aside, but what you actually have is players that are very accustomed and acclimatized to what is a very specific set of conditions to play in, or to do any kind of sport in. It would be the same if they were doing long distance running, or if they were doing fighting, or any of these other sports that involve that. Like, it would be the cardio would be the first thing you'd notice in the guy who's not from there, where you'd just be going like, oh shit, he doesn't look himself.
And the Lions were sort of notorious for second half blitzes. That was what they were doing to teams.
What happened when was it the Canes came over?
Yes.
And blew them away at first.
Yes.
And then faded. And that was after a pretty tricky period in the calendar for them as well. A few tough games on the bounce. And then it's the second half in Johannesburg.
It created an illusion of and this is sort of a weird thing that results do, because it almost puts doubt into our minds, because we, just as people who are watching rugby, we sort of we watch what they're doing and we see flaws, and we see lots of flaws, and then we see a team that's flawed beating a team that in the Hurricanes that is significantly less flawed, and then you almost question, like, what is going on here? Is there something new? Are we not catching something? Like, and the result like this is sort of it's certainly a reassurance for everything that you've been saying for a very long time about frailties all over the park,
across the board. It's so systemic, and as much as they have good players across the pitch, they have bad, like, just empty jerseys too much as well, and people who aren't carrying their weight.
And we've made that point. You did very, I think, emphatically last week, at the point about empty jerseys, about like too many positions through the spine of the team. You look at like the jersey number 3, jersey number 8, jersey number 9, jersey number 10, jerseys 11, 14. Like, that's 6 players of your 15 being really not test
on the level.
standard.
When you think of on the converse, like the team they're playing, where sure they picked Rico Ioane on the wing this week, but it could have been any kind of thing. It's different. It's sharpening different tools for different purposes.
But what I want to talk about, sorry to interrupt,
go on,
but what I want to talk about, which is slightly different, is just how disappointed I was from a coaching perspective, and it's kind of a weird place to start, because 57 is the number that stands out, but Neil is also a significant number in that game. And looking at how the Springboks were attacking, earlier in the year, there was some good stuff. There was some good stuff against Argentina. There was some clever stuff. There was Serpentine moving into first receiver, Andres Kutsia coming into the line. There was good variation of the play. Sometimes it was run runners, sometimes they were getting offloads away. There were little pods in midfield that were nice, and they were just varying, and it seemed like they were making decisions based on what was in front of them. And one of the most effective set plays and formations that they had was a simple screenplay with Jan at first receiver and Yankees in behind. And we just didn't see any of that. No link play. No, the one thing we did see was a few pick and jams through the middle early doors, which is a good
variety of rugby for them to be playing.
Good thing to attack the All Blacks with as well. All Blacks do not resource that area that well, so it was a good plan. They got some purchase, not a lot of purchase, and it didn't really amount to anything. But in the back play, there wasn't enough variety. There wasn't enough. There wasn't enough versatility. They weren't really thinking about attacking them. They weren't really thinking, like, basic things like hard lines weren't happening. Like little.
We didn't see Serpentine get into that kind of role in the game.
Not at all. He wasn't at first receiver.
He did it once in the second half.
He was leading the defensive line and struggling, but he was doing his job leading the defensive line, but obviously having to make a lot of tackles. And but in attack he wasn't leading. It was Yankees, and he was far out. He didn't seem to have license to move into first receiver. Jesse Creel didn't get involved in the game.
There was a disconnect when they had their own ball. Now, granted, the two of them still defend very well together, the two centres, but there was a definite disconnect between the two of them with ball in hand.
They're used to each other, and they've had good connections with each other. And this is a team now that, to the credit of Alistair Coetzee as a coach, has stuck with this back line from minute 1 of the season. So they've been together for months now, 2 months. The team have been together, playing rugby together. And for them not to have any combinations, for them not to have any offloads, for them not to be comfortable switching positions and moving out wide is just a shocking indictment. And they just seem to have stopped thinking about it. It was all about the pick and jam first of all, but then once the ball got out wide, it's sort of Yankees is a problem and Hughard's a problem, and it just sort of stops at them. They're not dynamic enough.
Yeah, there's also, I think there's a
nobody's making plays and nobody's reading off each other.
But that's born of what the Lions team is doing, and now what this Springboks team is doing is like it's a misplaced emphasis. They don't know where their weapons are, they don't know where their strengths are, and they're into the picture of all of their games these days has this kind of ebb and flow, back and forthness to it, where it's like we'll hold the ball for a bit, we'll attack. Oh, it's probably going to be a try, and if it's try class, then kick off, and then it's your go to come back and score and thing, and then maybe you don't score, and then we score again, so that's 14-0. Then you score, it's 14-7. And it's just this back and forth of try fests where they're not even defending. That's part of what has lended into this reverse drift tendency in their defence, which they're trying to get rid of. But it's this whole, they've just got settled into this game where they're just playing heads up rugby. It's almost like tip rugby, or like a version of rugby league, almost, the way that when you're looking at it, because they're just comfortable enough going coast to coast, back and forth, not relying that much on territory. If they get stalled, they don't mind booting it up in the air aimlessly, because they'll just be like, we'll just reset with a kick. And one of the tries, the Brodie Bertalic try, was exactly that, where they just stalled and Yankees was just in deep and there's no support, and it's like, alright, kick it up in the air, I suppose. And it was just caught and returned immediately for a try.
Yeah,
it's like, that is the difference now. This is the level. You can't afford to do that, because the other side of it is, if you're going to be, we've made this point so many times, that the Springboks need to be that attritional block in this. And if you're going to challenge the All Blacks, they need to do it with the dirty side of rugby, with the heavy hitting side of rugby, the mean side of rugby. Whereas they just go down to New Zealand and try and play that back and forth rugby thing. They're not as good at it as New Zealand, and that's where you get the 57.
But they did need to do more. And like, what I will say is that, like, you talk about the reverse drift, and it's like a poor instinct that they have, but very few of what All Blacks were doing was actually coming from straightforward multi-phase. Like, if you look at actually where the tries come, it was broken field ball, it was turnover ball, it was chaos ball, it was cross field kick ball, and it was like those little attacks down the blind side, exploiting Raymond Rule, exploiting Courtney.
Those two wingers, they are such a problem, and it's just
they were missing tackles left, right and centre, and the All Blacks attacked it. And we'll talk about the All Blacks and how awesome Steve Hansen attacked this game, and it was like a really good thing to see them be ruthless like that
after the Lions tour. It was exactly the performance we needed.
But like, just to stick on the Boks, like, I really do think like the first problem, the initial problem, is what they're doing with the ball, and that's what you're saying is like the kick. It's coming away from just kicking away simple ball, but there isn't a lot of making plays, and there isn't a lot of thinking about where spaces and attacking plays, and just looking
off the
eager
back
to
of
play the ball.
A season where all you have to do is shift from left to right, and then suddenly Raymond Rule's in the corner, or someone's in the corner, and just like, hang on,
or like
is that how easy it is to
step
score
inside is one break. But that's the thing, is like it needs, like, you need Serpentine to be a bit, Serpentine and Creel to be a bit of what we're seeing from Ulster with McCluskey and Bowe, is that like real on a string thinking together as one, but they don't seem to have license to do it. Courtney Skussan and Raymond Rule, good finishers, don't seem to have license to come off their wing. They don't seem to have license to come inside. So there's nobody making plays except Yankees, and Yankees it's like, I don't know what his strong suit is, but decision making isn't it. He's very passive, and Hughard the same.
He's a passenger of a 10. He's a very much a passenger of a 10, and if they can dominate in the pack, they can win some games with him there.
The other thing is that they didn't pick Peter Steff to Toit, who again is the typical guy who you need playing against the All Blacks, because he is an old school Springbok lock,
just hard-headed lock.
They picked Mustard instead, which is just an out and out mistake.
He's a finesse player, and that's another thing of trying to play because Mustard is the kind of player, looks in the mould of just a response to this current generation of All Black forwards.
Sure,
that's what he's a young lad. He's more athletic. He's a more dynamic South African lock than you would have ever seen in history. He's very low to the ground when he carries. He's very dynamic with his ball in hand. He's good in the line out. But he's also just not got that same thing that we're talking about with the Yankees thing, or the issue of having Combrink in the side, which we were advocating before as well. Just needs some of those just hard-headed, hard-nosed players who have that grit to them. And that.
But the other thing that Peter Steff offers that we didn't see enough of, again, like we talked about combinations in the backline, Serpentine and Creel, is combinations in the forward with offloads. So we had a little bit of those pick and jams, getting purchase, and what we were missing was guys making runs off each other with a sense of urgency and purpose. You look at how Ireland played the All Blacks, not in Chicago but in 2013 in Dublin. If you look back at that game, the game that Crotty won with a last minute try, some of the interplay that really caught the All Blacks off guard was in the tight. Some really clever interplay with like Cian Healy's and Devon Toners and these
Rory
guys
Bests
and
using
Rory
their
Bests.
hands, just involved with Conor, linking up with Conor Murray,
exactly,
and
but
stuff,
just working off each other and having three options going, three big men running in different directions, eager to get the ball, excited to get the ball, and the ball carrier making
and
a
not
decision.
stopping on contact as well.
Yes,
they were very, very much about that.
And eager to find tries and this is the other thing that you really need when you're playing the All Blacks, is have like from minute one an urgency about scoring tries, like not being satisfied. Like that is the same as always. Like if scoreline was 57-0, but it was 3-0 after 15 minutes. So you're actually kind of happy after 15 minutes. Like, okay, we're in the game. We're going a bit nip and tuck here. But what teams are starting to recognise more and more, and what every team needs to recognise, is that you need to start the game at 100 miles an hour against the All Blacks. You need to be looking for tries with urgency, with 100% urgency
is the word, and it's true, and that's what Ireland have demonstrated, and it's. Well, although I don't know, the Lions test seemed like a curiosity, or just a bit of a. It's hard to gauge New Zealand off that, and it's hard to use those games as a template on New Zealand rugby is a little bit false, because they lost some of their key players and kind of didn't really play like themselves towards the end of it, which was a bit of a head scratch. It was a head scratching tour from a New Zealand point of view, which is why it's hard to judge. So this is a refreshing performance for that team.
That New Zealand, they did what they never do.
They started overthinking and responding.
They were playing based on what they were seeing from the Lions.
Yeah, they were. To be fair, it was an unusual experience to be in, where the Lions are in town for a month, and it's like all you can see is all over the papers, all over the Rugamaga Matrix, or
you just got a little
shows.
caught up into it.
They just got wrapped up in it and literally stopped, like paralysis by analysis. It almost feels like they just they were responsive and reactive in their coaching style, whereas this was very much a proactive game from them, because they like you said earlier, they identified those two wingers as the glaring weakness that we have known about them since day one. Even though Raymond Rule had a decent game, not the week just gone, but the week before, he had a decent game in defence. He made some good plays, but you just go like, no, Brian Habana, they are not World Cup winners. They are not, and that's the same thought with Yankees. That's always where my criticism comes from, and I'm glad now that I'm justified saying, because 57-0 for a Springbok side.
Well, again, like it seems every year now there's something unprecedented happening, and it's one thing about the Springboks. It's also true of the All Blacks. Like, they seem to get unprecedented wins every year. I mean, it's a good chance that we're seeing the greatest team ever to play the game.
I think we are,
and it's a privilege, obviously, as Ireland fans, to have beaten them, and it's a privilege just to see them play. It's a beautiful thing. And as we are about to move on to them, I just want to make one more note in the box, which is their only positive, which is that Sia Khaleesi is still
a serious operator.
Again, he's not actually that abrasive player, but he's a player who you really need in the team, which is just deftness of touch.
He reminds me of Itoji, even though he's a different player too.
But he has twice the ball skills.
Yeah, a little bit more of a baller, but in terms of his engine and just the tempo of his game. Because it's remarkable. You notice him in the 60th minute when he makes a play, and it's just like, wow, he's up at the same exact speed.
He always makes those plays towards the end of games.
Because others are tiring.
But his hands are really deft. He's getting smarter by the game.
He doesn't look to die with the ball either. He's not one of these he's tunnel vision type.
He's one of a few players looking to make plays and looking to make reads and looking to play off his own players as well. And that's why he gets on the end of so many combinations.
Makes good tackles as well when they're needed.
Ball in hand, he gets on the end of some good combinations. And then the other thing about him, though, that I do want to make a note of, is that there are a couple of times under the posts after a conceded try, the boy looked pissed. He looked annoyed, Sia Khaleesi, which I've never seen him before. He's always usually just flowy.
Flowy is right.
But he looked really annoyed, and that was kind of heartbreaking to see. Like a world-class Bok flanker feeling like Sergio Parise.
Yeah. And looking for all intents and purposes like him, because there were a lot of other, like Malcolm Marks could have done with showing up a bit more on days like that, and all these guys we've been advocates of in that side. I still do like and rate Marks, but Etzebeth was relatively quiet as well. Just anonymous, put on the invisibility cloak for a half at least, and then it's just game over. So when you do it against this All Black side, it is game over. But I was super impressed with the urgency displayed by the All Blacks in terms of that, and the recognition of the fact that this team are a weak team, and there are so many glaring holes, and that they shouldn't be allowed to get into a back and forth flowy experience like thing, which is obviously what the Boks seemed to want from it with the kick. They didn't want to engage with kicking tennis. They picked McKenzie there. They didn't pick Dag. They picked McKenzie there. They picked Rico Ioane there. They picked
Scudder as well.
Scudder there. They wanted to isolate and attack those channels.
We were talking last week about so many clutch decisions because of the interesting and I was sort of on this bandwagon more than you were, but the interesting dynamics that this Springbok team could present in terms of people. And you were thinking, like, could they be this monster team at the breakdown? Obviously, the loss of Jaco Creel hurt them there, but they have been a monster team at the breakdown. So maybe you drop Sevilla and pick Kane. Now they did do that, but in the hooker jersey, the natural decision when you're playing the Springboks is Cody Taylor, a big guy, plays with the Crusaders, won in Ellis Park this year. A real breakdown operator will get in there and nullify that potential threat from the Springboks. But again, instead they go with Dane Coles, runner of the ball player, and you saw 10. those as
you've said before, another 10.
You saw those decisions all through the pitch. Perinara, more conservative option than Smith, goes for Smith, as you just pointed out. The whole back three, he goes for the ball players, the guys who are going to attack, and they did. And Milner Scudder and Rico Ioane were MVPs of the match.
Reaping benefits of just such, oh my god, such terrible stuff. I've never seen, cause in that fixture, I've never seen rugby of the level of the poor defence displayed by the South African Warriors.
Yeah, it was ludicrous.
It was nowhere near the level that I'd expect from a Springboks All Blacks match or an All Blacks Springboks match. Like that's what you want to see, like high level. That's when all those great games when it's nip and tuck. They're never some of those, the softness of some of those tries that ended up happening.
It looked a bit like a World Cup match.
It looked like a World Cup group match between All Blacks v anyone, Canada, USA or Canada or someone. Yeah, that was the dynamic of it, and that was the feel of it. And that's a shame for a fixture of that magnitude. It really is, because the Springboks are, like, more so than what with Australia, when we're talking about Australia's problems, like the Springboks, rugby's ingrained in their culture too, as much as there's a lot made of how the All Blacks and the Haka, and it's very much a cultural thing for them. That's true of the Springboks as well. There's a storied history of rugby in that country, and to see this team just disappoints me big skin. Yeah. So but there are interesting things at play, and like we hope that rugby isn't dying there, but we see, especially in terms of the Springboks, we see real poor decisions being made. But considering like we're European, and a lot of our, as far as the talent coming from there, like you're watching so many class South African players in the French rugby, in Europe, across European rugby as well.
Here's the thing: like we steer clear, relatively speaking, of non-rugby related controversies on the show. Like we kind of did a joke last week about how we're not interested or talking about Israel Folau's tweet.
Yes,
but
don't care about him or anything like
sort
that.
of outside the rugby, but what is having an effect on the rugby and what everyone's talking about is this sort of ANC enforced quota system in South Africa.
Yeah.
So then you look through the team, and it's not it's really not. It's a colorblind thing, because you absolutely love the great players who are stepping up for the Boks, and that's like Bistem Tawira and C. Khaleesi, and obviously Brian Abana back in the day. And there are so many great black players who do that jersey such credit. But if you actually just honestly look through the team and pick out your problems, like you're going to find Raymond Rule, Courtnall Scassan, even Rudy Page coming on the bench. What's that about? Your man at number 8, whose name keeps escaping me. Uzer Kasim.
Uzer Kasim, yes.
Uzer Kasim, huge problem.
No work rate for a modern number 8 as well. Like he looked like Michael Leach towards the tail end of this season. He was just like not at it. Yeah. And then again, like Elton Yankees, who we've obviously mentioned quite a bit. Yeah. And the natural replacements for them, your Combrinks, Marcel Coetzee, Pollards. They're not allowed to play. I know.
They're not allowed to play. It would be seen as racist
for me to say something
team
like that if I were South African and the coach and stuff. And in brutal, honest fashion, like.
But the coach himself.
That's the facts about the players. Like Combrink not being in that team is lunacy.
Yes.
The way he's playing right now.
Faf de Klerk.
not being in that team, lunacy as well. The way he's playing. Like Faf de Klerk, when the Lions play, and the Lions. Such an anomaly this year, and you can watch some of the older podcasts, and we were just scratching our heads, struggling with what to make of all of it, because looking at some of the tries they were scoring, you're just going, no. Some of the teams that had to play, no. Begrudging the fixture list that they had as well, but whenever you watch them play, Faf was instrumental to everything good that they did. And so many times, and Combrink also, and so many times when games were stalling around the 50-60 minute mark, it was because Yankees was standing too deep. And then they do even just stick Faf in at 10, and that gets them going straight away.
They did
again.
that, I think it was against the
Sunwolves initially, but they did it again later in the season as well.
It just worked like a dream.
Yeah, he can't kick. He can't drop kick, as we found out when he did a terrible 22 restart. Which I'd say
you can do that is Andres Coetzee.
Yeah.
So
it shouldn't be that much of an issue, and Faf should definitely be there. You're just looking at them going like, these are amazing weapons, and they still have such resources. That's what we're saying. We're talking about that back three. Keep Coetzee there, bring in Combrink and bring back Villy LaRue on another wing.
Yep.
What a serious back three that is then. Like, what an unreal attacking option.
And guys who can make plays.
Yeah, and 2 fullbacks back there, and Combrink another one. Like Combrink, like not a fullback, but you're covered as far as the high ball is concerned. They're all very intelligent heads up players. I guarantee they wouldn't be getting rounded around and doing these tickling tackles and getting rounded by Rico Ioane.
Or even by Liam Squire. Did you see that
stood up by Liam?
Did you see that montage? There was somebody on Facebook put together a montage of just all of Raymond Rule's missed tackles. And
there were many.
But it was like every single restart was the same. They went deep on the right wing,
and
he would come
Squire,
flying up, and Squire was always the guy who would catch it, and he would just like jog up and bump him off and move on. And it was just like time after time after time. And the poor little guy who has like the heart of a lion, who I really like as a guy, Raymond Rule, was come flying up every time, and every time just with the terrible technique, and it's like, you're not a test level fly half, and it's a disservice to you to put you in there.
Test level winger, but
test level fly half. Did I say?
He's definitely not a test level fly half.
I would imagine. I
guarantee not.
But Yankees is indeed.
Neither is Yankees.
I'm starting to be concerned about Alistair Coetzee as well. The other thing, like, there's so many coaching errors, there's so many systems errors. Defense isn't what it should be, although it is improving.
I still think the main thing is just a misplaced emphasis. I think whatever the idea. Like, I'm not entirely sure what the vision is for this side, but we've definitely been drifting in that Lionsy direction in terms of the parallels between the Springboks and the Lions and the way that they're playing and the way that they're
Golden Lions. This is the Johannesburg Lions, not
Lions.
British and Irish.
Yes, just to clarify that. But yes, that team that have been romping through Super Rugby with a very strange style, and it's just, like, it's definitely not Springbok rugby that they're playing. And I just think there's a misplaced emphasis. We've highlighted it before. They're not attritional enough. They're not abrasive enough in the challenge, and they're too focused on the wrong things. They're trying to work these little systems that ultimately don't put their weapons in space.
There weren't even that many systems, to be honest. There wasn't a lot of finding space, and there was a lot of individuals operating as individuals, and then just a clumsily assembled bench that makes no sense to anybody.
Haphazardly, just a bunch of names.
Like Pollard comes on with nothing to do and no idea of what to do. Delindy is just crazy.
You said this before about like, oh well, you know what, Delindy's good for a solid exit, which is exactly what you'd want in the last 10 minutes.
If you're in trouble on your own line and you have a line out, you pop it to Delindy off first receiver, he'll beat a couple of men and present that ball, and you can get a good box kick away. That's his role in a rugby jersey. Is to set up a good exit. Not what you need off your bench.
It's just given such little thought, and I feel like it looks.
I would like to be sat down, like, and again we talk about quotas. Delindy's not a black guy, and it's like I would like to be talk like what's the rugby based decision for having Damien Delindy on your bench, or is it just jersey filling? And like that's really where the lack of thought seems to come in from Alistair Coetzee. And it just seems it's such a problem. And they still have potential, I think, to do some good things. But obviously, if they ever want to be on that level again,
this is where you're harping on the necessity of, and it was kind of warranted with Australia giving us such a scare as they did in Super Rugby this year, with all of their teams tailing off. And now you're just looking at what New Zealand are doing, and it's in the year of the Lions tour, where the Lions only this is the actual British Irish Lions now, but where they all managed to come together and scramble to an ill-deserved draw against the best team ever. You're just looking at the Rugby Championship going, someone needs to challenge them, and that was your main thought behind the Springboks. The Springboks need to be the someone to challenge them, and I still think that's true, but the Springboks need these kind of hard lessons learned because they're doing it so
here's
fucking wrong.
Here's the problem, is that they're not learning them.
They're not.
They like last year, if you were going to learn the lesson, last year was going to be the lesson. And I tell you what, we're coming up to the point of no return as far as 2019 is concerned. Because if by December, if by Christmas, Alistair Coetzee is still in charge, he's going to be in charge through the World Cup 2019,
and they're going to lose.
Yeah, so I mean, I figured that this was the year to learn the lesson, and I actually thought it was kind of nice.
Get Razzie Erasmus in there. It's not too late.
Well, he is going to come in. He is going to come and do something. But again. Well, hopefully it will
drag Coetzee out and go like, well, I'm here now, and be like, right, let's get ready for the World Cup.
Personnel issues are a problem. Systems issues are a problem. The team ethic is a problem. They're too comfortable losing.
They are. And
that's
it. Yeah. They get into these back and forth.
So many problems. There's so many.
So
problems.
Comfortable. There's also that. I've said it once before, but this notion of tries, they like it's like goes back to that taking turns style of play that they have, where it's like you have the ball and now we have the ball, and then we score a try and now you score a try, and it's all just too passive for a Springbok jersey, because it always comes back to that. You want to have them in their face hitting, and want them absolutely like just despairing at when they're 5 meters out from the line as they're defending, then and when people are laying siege to their line, being flinging themselves into tackles.
When was the last time they bloody well conceded a yellow card?
Yeah,
like a Springbok team, they don't concede yellow cards at all.
No, they just concede the try and go straight back to the restart.
Like,
and it's like just it's all la da 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 kind of rugby, and you're just like, what?
They're like, and the point I want to go back to, because obviously it's alarmist. Because they won all their other games this year apart from last week, but they're unbeaten this year. But like they're better player for player than Argentina and Australia, which is why they're ranked ahead of them, which is why I think in the upcoming game they're going to beat Australia. I think in South Africa.
In South Africa they probably will.
I think they'll beat Australia. I think they'll do a job on them up front.
They'll still probably only win by 10 points.
But like Australia and Argentina are worse teams than South Africa, and I think we all know that. But they didn't come to New Zealand and chip 57 points because they came with fire under their bellies, understanding what this fixture was, and they took it to them. And there's nobody in a South African jersey doing a Creevy, doing a Sanchez, doing what Beale was doing, flying into tackles. Curly Beale, how many tries did he save in that game? It was glorious to watch him. Like, and he was like, and then he got that try, and his face covered in blood. And that's what you want. Like, you love it. It's the heart and soul of what this game is at times.
Warriors at crucial moments in the war, coming up with the big skin. Like, this is it. And they're too passive, too frail a team, and they need to be dismantled and reassembled again with a different thing in mind. Perhaps Pollard's return will help with some of this, but I still think there's just more systems.
Well, again, like Pollard needs something to do as well. Like, he came in and he just looked lost.
He did look lost. He looked off the pace, which is understandable as well.
He got bumped off by a hungry Anton Litter-Brown for that one of those tries. The All Blacks were great, as we've discussed. They attacked them. I think we'll move on.
We will move on. We've talked a lot at length about that. One thing we should just highlight: just the All Blacks are great. Like, can't be undermining their victory by trashing the Springboks. But they were so ruthless and so efficient, and it was pure All Black rugby. Yeah, and it was the deserved spanking of that Springbok team. After the whole year.
And this is the thing: like we I don't know how many times in this podcast we've got ahead of ourselves and compared Leinster to the All Blacks. But like, there's a reason why they're just that step above, and like
what we've been the try.
What we've been calling for so long about these sort of clumsy South African teams who are losing like every week 42 to 27, and it's like, would somebody not nil them because their attack's not that great? And the All Blacks against the South African team, the Springboks, nilled them. It wasn't even 3; they nilled them. And that's like really clinical, finally, really good stuff.
They deserve it. They deserve it as far as I'm concerned, because for too long in Super Rugby, literally for the last 3 years in Super Rugby, any fixture involving the South African clubs feels a bit mad. Just looking at it, it's like, this is weird. This isn't what rugby should look like. And that's where a lot of people up here gets
like
off.
A buckled down professional team could really do a job.
If you're talking like Saracens in championship mode, where they're just holding the pill for the whole day and going recycle up the gut, and then finding a try out wide crossfield kick, and it's suddenly 7-14, 21.
Saracens have so many. That Saracens team, certainly of last year, have so many ways of scoring. Like, I really think against that Lions team that got to the final, like Saracens at their best would have an absolute field day, because they get turnovers and they get tries off turnovers, and then when they'd have the ball they get tries off that. So it would be something similar to what we've seen today. But absolutely love that from the All Blacks, and they played with smiles on their faces,
with freedom, like that Milner Scudder try
with Barrett
the little thing in tandem. And
it was just a beautiful thing.
And Skossan showed his wheels. Skossan has serious wheels, because Bowden was in the open, and it was like, oh shit.
You very rarely see Bowden getting ran down
that quickly. But they just handled it so superbly, and there was no need for it.
It's all instinct, though. It's all instinct, and it's playing with smiles on your faces and looking for that score. Always.
Indeed.
And it's beautiful. There was another Springboks chasing shadows try that was off a kick return when Rico Ioane burst through Raymond Rule.
That was Ritalik's try.
But the wide shot shows like
all the other support players. It was like a Rugby 08 thing, like you were saying, one of those when you make a line break and it's like all of the little computer men just all in a row supporting you, and the rest of the team just converging behind, and it's just it was beautiful.
So the whole team were trotting in together for that try, and it was kind of a glorious thing. They played total rugby, and they did a really great job. And
it was great to see. Yep. The other game was Wallabies Argentina, which was another kind of humbling lesson. It was a humbling lesson for Argentina. This is it. I was talking to you off the podcast, going like, I'm fearful of the Wallabies for this one. After that performance last week, this could be a game that Argentina could nick on them. And then one of the things that came to light is Tuchelet's not starting, and I was like, oh shit. Oh well, then Australia are going to win. That, it literally is that important, and I think it was. Yeah. I think it was. Yeah. But I also think they had a few too many similar criticisms to what I'm saying as well. Just a few too many passenger jerseys in that Argentina team. It's not even
passenger jerseys. It's for Argentina, I feel like they're playing more or less to their potential. They're doing more or less the right thing. It's just a little bit stale. And I'm not even sure if there is much coming through the ranks. What I will say is that there's a lot of good there.
There is, yeah.
Landajo and Sanchez is a real great.
Yeah, Landajo starting was a good thing as well. Yeah.
This is the thing, is that they've been trying to do, putting Hernandez at 10 at the expense of Sanchez, is just throw a wild card into the mix that might help them get a result. But even though they didn't get the result, they're playing pretty much the best game of rugby they could have played. Mm-hmm. And as it happens, the Wallabies, Bernard Foley had his one great game a year,
did look great,
which he has. He has one stellar performance a year in him, and this was it. And it was great. He had
his England form in the World Cup.
Coasting through. He was stellar. Curtly Beale was stellar. Will Genia was stellar.
Genia is having a tremendous tournament.
Yeah, working as distributors, all of them. Mm-hmm. Michael Cheika. In terms of getting it out of his players, what a man! Yeah. Jeez, he gets coach of the year in my mind.
It's actually there he is. Bernard Jackman is not a huge fan in terms of his book.
He had these issues with Michael Cheika
with his player management, just his approach to player management, I suppose. And
but
that's fair.
There's no argument with results. Bernard has a different approach to player management, which is equally good. And we'll talk about the Dragons in a moment and their good result this week. But Cheika's, when he gets his player, and there's something very Aussie about it as well.
Prickly Aussie,
but when those particular personalities that have made up his team for so long,
he's great at getting out softness. That's what he weans out. Yeah. He weans out the softness in teams, and teams like Australia have a tendency to do that. The Australian players and the Australian approach to play nearly encourages a little bit of softness, a little bit of letting stuff go, and that's why the Wallaby side, what they get so much better, so much more right than when they're with their clubs, is there aren't many clumsy botched exits, clumsy botched scrums, just terrible line-outs. There's a focus at those particular moments, those ones, because he will lambast them, and that he will if they're fucking overthrowing line-outs or when they're in their own territory.
They're really well. Even simple things like hacky things that they started doing when it was going all wrong for them, like at the last Lions tour. They started doing hackney things just to try and inspire a little something in them, like having half time on the pitch. Even this was before Cheika came in. They still have some of that. One of those is the restart, where they all start on their own, back on the 10-metre line, and Foley does his little, and then they all sprint, and then he kicks it on time with them, and that's just a cool thing because we're all sprinting. And they have loads of those little things that get them in sync. But what I will say about Cheika in terms of player management is he really seems to know what it takes to get Kirtley to play like Kirtley, and especially Kirtley. And Kirtley's one of those real typical Aussie flaky personalities who obviously had a terrible time back in those doldrum years. But Cheika just has he just seems to get him, and he gets Falau, and he gets these boys like Reece Hodge and Henry Spate, they're all he plays all these players who we knew were good have finally they were so far gone out of form, they were just getting curbed by average teams in Super Rugby. All of these players looking appalling, and he's got them together and playing some beautiful stuff. And I couldn't give him enough credit. He is coach of the year for me this year. The systems are all there as well. It's not just galvanized players. They're communicating really well.
Attacking with an intelligence.
A distributor, Foley's a distributor, Beale is a distributor, and then you've got such strike players in Kurandrani, Hodge and Spate and Falau. It's just a glorious backline of all stars when they get going, and it's a beautiful thing. It really is. It's a beautiful thing, and huge credit to them. They have a pack that's sort of stalling, but a backline that's glorious.
The pack is where ultimately they've when in that great performance against the All Blacks as well. The pack is where they just lose control of the reins because they don't have the reins the whole time, and it's still those same frailties that it comes up the scrum creaks, the line out wobbles, and then suddenly they're starting to get poached a bit more.
This is what'll
Hooper's
happen
losing
against
his
the
effects.
Boks.
It's what will happen again in the Boks in South Africa probably. It's just Hooper won't be able to get the Jackals in. He'll be
Sean
cleared
McMahon
out.
looking pretty good in the loose though.
Sean McMahon is pretty good. He is definitely, like, this is the thing, like, you like lump him in. He's definitely a better number 8 than Kazim in
Yes.
number 8. He's much more. He's a workhorse. He's like a little bit of the CJ Stander, guilty of that as well, where he's like sometimes puts his head down, barrels into contact before when there's a pass on, but only sometimes. Like, he's still a very physical, robust carrier, which is good. It's the other lad. It's Ned Hannigan on the other side, who just doesn't add anything as far as he's not that great at not line-out option. He's definitely not a poacher. He's not built like one, so he's not going to be used as one. He doesn't link up all that much. I don't know.
I feel like he's not that fit either. Like he definitely gets caught in when the ball gets when the line break happens.
Yeah, when he's trying to retreat into the
side and those kind of things. He's just a little clumsy player.
He looks clumsy on the pitch, and it's like when you compare what they were able to do in the World Cup with the Pocock and Hooper combination, where they brought the best out of each other. It was literally like a tag team thing where it was like, oh, Pocock would steal that time, and then Hooper with the steal then, and it's like they were really bringing the best out, elevating each other. Whereas now it just feels like Hooper as captain is trying his best to be a Keith Wood, put the head down, do it, and try and have follow me football kind of stuff. But it's just it's too many of those jerseys. Like, the work rate of their second rows a lot of the time is like made look all the worse when they're playing against a Brodie Retallick or any of these players who can even
Sam Whitelock,
Luke Romano even as well. Like, just the way that they implement the other teams now. We were discussing second row at length last week as well, but just the way other teams are using that jersey now and the specimens in them, and you look at what Australia are bringing there. And with Hannigan at 6, it's almost like a team with 3 second rows, but are they really?
Rob Simmons is pretty useless. I will say Rory Arnold's having
a good season, and he's like playing above himself, but I'm still looking at him going like, if you're coming in a battle against Brodie Retallick or a war of attrition against Eben Etzebeth, he's second best
elsewhere. Like second rows are becoming really elite. Like, it is a golden era of
Maro Itoje if they come against
Itoje and Joe
England,
Laundry and George Cruz, and then in Ireland Devon Tonery and Henderson. Like, there were really good second rows around these days. The Gray brothers in Scotland.
Very true.
There's a lot of good second row play going on, and that was part of Scotland got the better of their line out when they beat them in June. So
it's just frailty threat, and then the front row as well, isn't it?
Like, Cheika brute forcing this thing, which is what he's doing, and keeping them alive, and he might even do it. I wouldn't put it past him to do it through 2019.
The backs look as sharp as they look in years as well. When you're talking about Genia, you're talking about Foley last week, talking about Beale. These are world class players on the peak of their powers. Just doing there is still truth to the old adage of the forwards win games backed by how much kind of thing, or by how many. And this feels like a team that are struggling with what ball that they're given and making the absolute most of the opportunities that they have. But there's going to be a point where that's not sustainable, because it just takes a few of those opportunities to be spoiled, and then you're spending 10 minutes without the ball and you can't seem to get it back.
And this is what I'm saying, is that the systemic issues in Aussie rugby aren't gone. There isn't that much talent coming through, and the guys making plays at the moment are still the aging players who we know very well. But that said, huge credit to the Aussies. They're keeping this thing alive, and we will look forward to Super Rugby. Obviously taking a break this week. Not Super Rugby, Rugby Championship.
And I made that mistake last week.
Yes,
your turn.
We'll
move into our hemisphere now. We're taking a break from that. There were two enjoyable games. I thought
100%.
Definitely enjoyed watching them on the Saturday morning. Kind of
I was a little.
You were emotionally involved in the Springboks decline.
But I was also
small hours.
I was also kind of just watching it happen. But then at the same time, I was a little Justin marshalling at some of the great stuff that the All Blacks were doing. There was just a little bit of oh yes boy, yes,
exactly. It was
so,
tremendous
when they're just playing. They're just and this is the thing, is it takes some amount of underdog mentality and begrudging to hate the All Blacks,
or parochial thinking.
You just can't hate the All Blacks. You can hate All Black fans, you can hate the fact that they're too dominant, but when you watch them play, you're watching glory.
And when you watch the Haka and somewhere, it's just it's
a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing, and it's a beautiful thing to see them beaten as well, which is why I hope to see that happen.
And I don't know if we will this tournament.
But maybe perhaps in November when Eddie Jones gets a crack at them. Eddie Jones is waiting in the wings.
Yeah, watching it all go down.
That'll
be a great game.
He's making some interesting comments this week.
What was he saying?
he was talking about, he was at Newcastle Soccer Academy, Newcastle United,
yes,
football team,
roundy ball team, yes.
They play with the roundy ball, yes. But he was saying that he really liked the academy infrastructure in soccer that's there in terms of harnessing and scouting player development and getting them from a young age.
That's something that we've been doing in Ireland. We're very familiar with it. It's from schools all the way through. We've
long wondered about England's underuse of their potential.
Yeah, and
it seems like that's a priority of Eddie Jones's, is rectifying it.
Is serious, because that has always been a fact, and it's like, how are England not vastly better than they are when they have the playing population?
Perhaps Eddie Jones is embarking on the first steps towards making the Super England team happen.
We had the very funny, that was our dad talking about some lad he knows in the office who's like from some English form school or prep school thing, and apparently they play rugby over there, and he was just mentioning, going like, oh, some of your boys are coming over to play us, and he was like, what? He's like, the Blackrock College, for anyone who doesn't know, in terms of schoolboy rugby in Leinster in Ireland, they are the All Blacks. They've won the Leinster School Cup 60 times, where the next best is like 12 or something. They just win it. They produced, Brian O'Driscoll went there. Most of the Leinster players and stuff would normally come up through that academy. And my dad's comment just immediately going, oh, you're going to get hammered. And it's like, well, our boys are pretty good, yeah. And it's like, no, you're going to get hammered. And it's like Blackrock senior team, you're going to get hammered. And met him a few months later. So what happened? They're good, those boys. Yeah, you're right. They're pretty good, those boys. Yeah. Just like, we didn't. Yeah, it was they won. And we've often thought that, because I think Wales are pretty good for their academy as well. When you look at Scarlets and stuff, and it's just when you almost lose sight of just how much smaller the countries are than England, and like in terms of population. And you're looking at England going, well, why aren't they producing all that many? And why are Northampton feeling the need to buy all these players? Or why are Bath feeling the need to buy all these players? Where's the young Bath boys playing?
Yeah, exactly. And it seems like Eddie Jones is
focusing on that problem as well.
Yeah, so he has got long-term ideas about restoring English rugby. So he's obviously here for the long haul, and it's like, it's good and scary.
It is scary from where we're coming from. Yeah, but we already have that infrastructure in place. We definitely have that. But obviously, this is the natural
population disadvantage.
It's true.
So, but I mean, like,
I'm confident in our position as Leinster heads. Yes. May be less confident if I were in Ulster or Connacht or Munster.
Right.
But in Leinster, I feel like the academy system
to compete. We
can compete on a European scale. Yes, I think so for the years to come.
But anyway, in the Pro 14, some rugby matches happened. I thought the most interesting games of the Pro 14 happened on the Friday evening. We had arguably three.
The ones where all the favourites lost.
Yeah, arguably three surprise results. I mean, the first two, Dragons beating Connacht. Obviously, as Irish fans, we don't want to see Connacht.
I think it was kind of coming. Even just judging by the way that this season opened for Dragons, there's potential in what he's doing. Gavin Henson at 10, he's putting a lot of faith in the man, but maybe that could come good dividends, because like Gavin Henson is still a really talented player, and he is kind of prodigal son of rugby almost. He must feel he has something to give Welsh rugby in particular, which is why Dragons, you can definitely get him on that thing. If you get him in a leader role, in a role of seniority and a role of great import, playing as 10, and building a team around him, I think that they have the look about them of a side that doesn't want to lose games, which has not always been the case from the Dragons side. And that just wants to play rugby. He wants to play rugby and wants to win. And
the thing that Jackman did when he first came in was that he was posting a lot on social media, and I was kind of just paying attention to what he was doing, and he was hosting like open days and open training sessions and getting all the kiddie clubs involved, and he was like, because it's a small parochial little place, Newport, and he was walking around and he was essentially getting all the rugby people to come down of a Sunday or of a Saturday and meet all the players, and we're in our pre-season and we're doing a bit of training, but we're chatting, and we're also like, he was giving speeches saying like, and we're going to show up and we're going to be a community, and you're going to show up and watch us, and we're going to deliver and play some rugby for you. And he just like, there's just been, and even Sky Sports were covering it, like, because Jackman, like, we know him and we love him and we read his book and we were cheering him on in the RDS for years. But as far as we're concerned, we've been paying huge attention, but he's been relatively under the radar.
Grenoble was another great success.
Yeah, what he's been doing with Grenoble, obviously they went down last year, but what he's been doing is like keeping a side with no money in the top couture playing total rugby. Yeah. And it's like, it's just a really cool thing, and he built a really great community there as well. And he's come into Dragons and just captured the imagination of the place and just restored this really great feeling. and then they come in the first two games.
Yeah.
First 2 games they get beaten, and yet that excitement.
It's unfortunate you have to play Leinster as well, which
Yeah.
like doesn't help with their chances. On
that
the
excitement
opening
is
day.
still there, and
Yeah.
then they've got to win, and that's good days, good vibes.
Yeah, unfortunate for Connacht from our Irish perspective, and they have not started the season with a bang at all.
Yeah, Kieran Keane is not in a good way.
No, it's unfortunate really because they showed such promise in the last couple of years under Pat Lam, and it feels like they're slipping back into that comfort
I
zone
was
of
talking
getting results like
to
this.
our dad recently about it, and he was saying he saw him interviewed, and he just got like a weird feeling from him, like it's just like reminded of him of Matt O'Connor in a way. It was like this kind of gruff, stubborn defensiveness that really typified every interview Matt O'Connor gave for 2 years.
You don't know as much as me. Shut up.
Yeah,
I know what I'm doing.
Just the
what are you doing
antithesis
questioning me?
Yeah, the antithesis of Pat Lam, like, and obviously it's harsh. Like, Kieran Keane's just starting, and he just want to play rugby, and that's what he's been saying so far. We don't want to play rugby, we want to improve, and all the right things. And he's worked with Dave Rennie, so very early to be shutting the door on him. But it was not a good start for Connacht. They don't look good at all.
It's true, and they just don't have that assuredness that they did with ball in hand in the last couple of years. Really, it's just unfortunate. But then that being said, good start for Dragons, getting that win on the board. It's opened it up, and then we had the Cheetah Zebra was a hilarious one as well. So the Cheetahs have a 5-pointer on the board, chalked up on that.
And Treviso with a win up the board as well.
Yeah.
A surprise away win in Edinburgh, which is like really throwing the cat amongst the pigeons. After Edinburgh made a great start.
I didn't watch that.
I haven't seen it either.
Yeah, because that's madness. What happened there?
Marty Banks is turning the world around, Shane.
Oh shit! Yeah, Marty Banks is at 10 for his fucking that's right. Benetton now, isn't it?
Benetton Rugby. Excuse me. Yes. But he's changing the world. He's gonna take him to the Heineken Cup final.
Banks is such a class player, man. He's just like he's like Ben Smith, but not quite. But he's
not quite Ben Smith, but he's such an amusing player. He's got such good clutch.
He really does. He really does, which is something that they have been so lacking.
Yeah,
and
but
I'm optimistic.
Like Treviso are in a happy place, and that's it. Like, it's just the Pro14 has this like really cool global look to it now, of like franchises going nip and tuck at each other, and it just feels a little more cohesive. I still think there's a gap between Leinster, Munster, possibly, I think after this week, Ulster, Scarlets,
Glasgow,
like and Glasgow, they're your MVP teams, and then beyond that are teams that are really scrambling.
There's the few
that
are bridging the gap though. There's your Edinburghs
but
who
the
can
point I'm
sneak
making
results.
is
the thing is, even with that gap, there can. Sorry, I interrupt. Like, but even with that gap, it's not like what we're seeing in the women's, where no games are competitive.
Yeah,
they can still they can still lose.
The point I'm making is that, like, what I think is that there was like a whole heap of a gap between. Sorry, my throat's killing me. But between the bottom teams, Treviso, Zebra, and like
Your
Edinburgh
Leinster
have lingered there. Cardiff, even like for a season or so, Dragons lingered there, and what I'm seeing is that gap close.
Yeah,
so
similar to like the World Cup just gone with the minnow teams.
So
it's just a display of, like, even in losing efforts, those teams are showing more signs of playing proper rugby, playing the same game.
Now winning games.
And they're winning games.
So that was again, like we're saying, Treviso.
The timing of it's good.
Yeah, Treviso winning games. Who else was winning games? We were just going through them. Dragons winning games. Yeah, so this is lovely. This is good to
Edinburgh winning the first 2 games was impressive as well and encouraging.
Yeah. And
we were actually singing their praises on the last podcast before it all went up.
We don't know.
It could have been a blip.
Treviso held Ulster last week.
They did. So we'll have to see what's to come from them when they get to play against the big team. What do they have to offer when they're in Thomond Park or when they're in the
Marty Banks to torture Toulouse.
My God, that would be the funniest thing. And Toulouse maybe deserve it.
They
deserve to be Marty Banks in an Italian jersey.
Yeah, but
he's playing, and isn't McGinty's playing at 12?
McKinley's at 15, I think.
He's at 15, is he?
Yes.
That's better. Yeah. Better than what they've ever been doing.
Two non-Italians to save the day.
An Irishman and a Kiwi with ball in hand.
I think McKinley is Italian qualified. I think he's going to be an Italian cap this year.
Really?
Yes. He was in the squad.
I don't begrudge him at all, and I think they'd be right to do it.
Yeah, that's McKinley is the
He's an
ex-Leinster
former
player.
Leinster player. We used to watch him. He was actually super tasty as well when he was young.
He was a
man. Do you
young
remember
10.
He was a young 10, and he was like 20. He did really well in one of the under 20s. Was it World Cups or Six Nations?
Might have been a Churchill Cup or something
mad. But then when he played a few times for Leinster A, and we saw him, and then we saw him for Leinster in whatever it was then. It was probably the Magners League. I think it was the Magners League as it was. And he looked one of those prospects that like what when we saw Pollard young, he had that little flow about him. And it was then super tragic when he had that incident and was out of the game for a few years because he lost his vision.
It was an eye gouge, wasn't it? It was a straight up.
No, I thought was it an eye gouge or I thought it was an accident? I thought it was an unrelated non-rugby.
I actually don't know, so I'm not going to say.
Yeah,
but he damaged his eye,
and because of craziness as well, those goggle things that he wears were banned in Ireland, and he managed to highlight that issue well enough that got overturned as well. It was a little bit of weird kind of.
He did have to move to Treviso to play rugby at first befie he highlighted it because he wasn't allowed to play with the goggles in Ireland, which is just silly.
It's craziness.
Yeah.
But
legend of a man, and he's could be capped for Italy this year.
He's just a good rugby story as well.
What I do want to talk about for the Pro14 though was a real game of the weekend, which was Ulster against Scarlets.
Serious
I've always found it hard to grudge Ulster. Parochially, I got nothing to do with Ulster, really. Parochially, I should be Leinster, Connacht, Munster, Ulster, if you talk about heritage.
In terms, yes, indeed.
That order, that's where I'm from. In that order, I have nothing, no relations in Ulster, no anything. I've always found it hard to cheer against Ulster because I've always liked the way they play rugby. And I like some of their players so much. And when I'm really joyously enjoying Stuart McCluskey and Tommy Bowe.
You've been calling for them in November.
I want to see more
because we were lacking a Ringrose and a Henshaw currently.
It's everything that Serpentine and Creel could be, but it's working.
Certainly with that display that they had at the weekend just gone, like they were so in tandem.
Tommy was on the bench and it was nip and tuck, penalties, and then Tommy comes on and all of a sudden there's flow, and there's joy, and McCluskey is linking up. And McCluskey
doing he was doing his Sonny Bill impression a few of those times, riding the tackle, big offload, and
he's not just a specimen. He's got a head on his shoulders.
He's really good. Yeah, he reads the game.
He's a
student of the game as well.
He's a 50 cap centre is what he is. He's got all the attributes. He's a 50 cap centre. He's good. Like Robbie Henshaw's going to find it hard to keep him out of a jersey if he keeps progressing the way he is. He almost already has more weapons than Henshaw. The question is, can he defend like him?
Yes. That is a question. Does he have the stamina for that kind of defensive performance as well? Yeah. Because Henshaw just runs around like a mad thing when he's off the ball.
But McCluskey and Bowe looking gorgeous when Bowe comes off the bench.
Bowe is like a fine wine of a player as well. He's got it even more so than I think he has a touch of those Ben Smith-isms as well when you're looking at him with ball in hand in open space. Just the way he carves out a line is elegant, and the way he's finding passes more this season than ever is beautiful as well. They look potentially dangerous and just much more. There's much more legitimacy to that centre combo than when there was a Cave or someone else.
Like Luke Marshall played this week and played
good
well.
Too. Like they still have those good players as options, but those two, when you're talking about the difference between international and club, those two are international level players, and they could be very soon in displaying that and linking up in green.
I would be very cross if they're not the combination in November. It feels like a real layup to pick them in November. For Joe, like Joe seems to miss these layups sometimes, and it really makes me cross based on early club form. This one's a layup. Joey Carberry last year was a layup, and he picked it, knocked that one right out of the park.
Yeah, he did.
So let's not have.
But then in the World Cup, we had Luke Fitzgerald on the bench, and then angry Luke Fitzgerald coming off the bench and being our only shining light when we needed it, but it wasn't.
But especially with a combination like this, you need them to be together. And I think Ulster need to not make that mistake as well. And I don't think they will. They were obviously resting Bowe this week, and he came on and was great. But McCluskey and him, like Bowe actually came on and was on the wing. Marshall was still playing, but the links were being made by McCluskey and Bowe. They have a telepathy. They have an Aaron Smith in the holo, and you need to bottle it and bring it places because there's cool attacking things to happen from both of those two.
Definitely.
And credit Ulster finding clutch scores.
Yes.
John O'Gibbs is the Northern Hemisphere's Michael Cheika right now.
Yeah. Doing exactly that. Yeah. Just getting rid of that softness, because that's what they're in need of as well. Like it is a matter of that, like, just they were so accustomed to losing all for last season. It was nearly like actually the Australian commentary for their clubs as well, when you're looking at the BBC coverage of an Ulster game. And it's like, but you remember we were up by 5 points in the last few weeks in the games, and then the last 20 minutes didn't go our way, so it's we won't get ahead of ourselves now.
It's like Phil Kearns commentating the Melbourne Rebels. Yeah. It's like we're 10 points up with 20 minutes to go. It's like, oh no, not going on. No, here comes the loss.
Here comes the line out. He's gonna overthrow it. Oh no. Yeah. And just that pessimism breeds in. It was all through last year. It was perplexing, and then you had forlorn looks on people like Rory Best, like these really iconic figures for them, and they just looked powerless to stop it. And you could definitely see games that they had looked like they were under control slip very much out of their control around that 60-minute mark, and then they never regather.
Do you know who's helping with that? Obviously John Gibbs really got them in a good mindset, but John Cooney, who's a scrum half with tempo based scrum, but he's also smart for them. Gets kicks at the right times, can place kick, which is really good. I always felt like we were too hasty to get rid of him. And as Leinster fans,
considering I think I rate him more than Nick McCarthy.
I rate him more than Nick McCarthy. I rate him more than Luke McGrath. I think he's going to slot in behind Conor Murray within the end of the year.
Reckon so?
Yes, I think comfortably enough.
The only thing that I think could see Luke McGrath retain in that position is our emphasis on defence and his quality as a defender.
He's an insanely good defender.
I know, yeah.
Luke McGrath is an insanely good defender for a scrum half.
Yeah.
He's like nothing I've ever seen before. Yeah. But there's Elton Yankeesisms there. Like he's never going to be an elite scrum half. And if I'm going to turn your point on you and talk about going to World Cups. Yeah, I don't think we can bring him.
It's true. I think so too, because the marked difference as Leinster fans, with Jameson Gibson Park on the pitch, you get that very flowy New Zealand style of halfback who comes and does challenge the line a little bit, picks and goes, but he's very decisive, very fast. He doesn't let the ball linger at the base of that ruck, which is an absolutely atrocious habit that was cultivated in the Northern Hemisphere, that so many scrum halves treat as rote, is like this thing. Scrum halves doing this instead of picking the ball up and getting on with it. Why is the scrum half doing this? I don't care.
The theme was like it was like dominate possession. Yeah. So this was when Munster were winning Heineken Cups. It was about dominating possession. So we slow it, we suck you out of the game. We're gonna pack the rucks with forwards, so you're not gonna see the ball, and we're gonna slowly seep towards the post. And when we get it again, you're not going to see it again. It's going to slowly seep and slowly sleep.
It's wrong.
It's wrong. It doesn't find enough scores.
Exactly. And then you sap your, like, as much as you like to think that with your hard-nosed carries up the middle there, that you're draining the opposition. In the modern defence, like we highlighted last year, where they've focused so much on nullifying that anyway, it's easier to defend, easier to play without the ball in those kinds of games.
The other thing is, like, you're not sapping the defence out of the wingers.
Exactly.
So you can get your 3 points, and then all of a sudden their wingers get their hands on the ball. And it goes wrong once, and then 7 points, and all your dominance is moot. So we know this. The ball needs to be moved quickly, and Cooney is great at doing that. Indeed. That game was joyous. Loads of great tries. Scarlets played their part. Yeah, Scarlets are good. But Ulster are good too.
I love seeing Barkley in that wide channel. Like this is it. That addition alone of Barkley into that team. So much better for them. And you have your Burns in the second row, ball playing second rows as well. They just have such more strength, like much more legitimacy to their pack than ever. And their backs still as legitimate as ever.
Very tidy out half, and Reece
Patchell very good as well. Yeah, no, to be honest now, I've never been unimpressed with Patchell.
No,
he's all through his thing. Even when they were losing games in seasons gone by, and he's a young lad, he just looks solid enough. He doesn't have that same tendency to hover too deep either. He does, because he's a big dude, and he doesn't mind taking a tackle if he finds himself in the position.
Doesn't mind making one either.
No, true enough. Like, he's
very solid
serious potential in him.
Probably a Welsh 10 in his time, unless someone better sort of stakes a claim.
Like, when you're looking at bigger, and this is always the question mark with this Wales team, is like, but are they good enough? Again, if we're going to frame it in the way we have been for the podcast, going to the World Cup now, are we going to win the World Cup or not?
Bigger's good for clutch plays.
But is he
I like him as a 20. I like him as a 22. I like him as a 22.
That's true. Actually, I think
come on and win a game for you.
Yeah,
no better man.
Come on and kick a corner. Come on and kick.
But yeah, it wouldn't surprise me to see Patchell and Bigger take them to the World Cup in that order. But certainly Scarlets got lost this game. This is the first proper heavyweight clash, I think, of the season. We're going to have another one tomorrow. And it's an exciting thing to see, and it was exciting to see Ulster come out on top of a big heavyweight clash.
Yes.
But Scarlets,
it was refreshing to see that. I'm sure if there's anyone watching from up north as well, I'd be very glad of that win. You can feel good about that win. Suffed them on the boys. But yeah, because they really deserve it after last year. Literally, whenever those games happened, and this is the other perverse thing is they weren't short of competitive fixtures last year. They were in a lot of games that they were in up until the 70th minute, and they lost. Yeah. The vast majority of them, they ended up losing, and that's why it was such a puzzling and kind of flat.
The rugby wasn't as neat though. The rugby wasn't with ball in hand. It wasn't as neat as it has looked so far this year.
As it was that.
But Scarlets losing bonus point in Ravenhill. Not a disaster.
Not a terrible result at all.
And onwards they go. Then they're going to be.
I think that's one of those results that'll be. It'll come to just how good of a result it is based on the next few months when teams struggle and a few of them will get hammered in Ravenhill. There will be hammerings dished out by that pair. And that team.
Yep.
In that,
Leila Fano deserves a shout out as well.
Leila Fano does deserve a shout out. I was saying as we were rewatching the highlights for that game, it's just I'm still getting used to that image of just Leila Fano fixing his scrum cap after taking a kick for Ulster. He's there in the Ulster jersey. He's up. What? Still getting used to it. It's great though. It's I think it is great, and I think it'll be good for Paddy Jackson ultimately when he comes back in. I think
we'll not go there.
I think it'll be good for him. I think in terms of his
but he
general
might not
play.
come back in, man.
I think he'll be in and out, and they'll nip and tuck, and it'll be a touch.
He might not play again, Paddy Jackson.
Really?
He's suspended for the year, and then whatever happens, if it goes bad for him, then he's not playing again.
We still haven't touched that. We're not going to touch that at all. But
but he's suspended for the year. He's not playing at all this season. He's not injured. He's suspended.
I know, yeah.
And they'll terminate his contract if it goes wrong for him. Mm-hmm. So we don't know. Obviously, if he does come back, it'd be great to see him play with Leila Fano.
Yeah, I think so too. But
we
in the
don't
meantime,
know.
they've fixed that problem because that was
all this negativity around Ulster and all Olding and Jackson coming in, and this is what I was talking to my mum and I was talking to my grandmother actually, both of whom our grandmother, we're both brothers, but
I'm familiar with her.
Yes, they were very sceptical about Ulster's chances this year. Just because of the whole negativity in the media. But what I was saying is just from a rugby perspective, it's they got Leila Fano in. They got John O'Gibbs coming in. They got their players finally are fit. Mm-hmm. They got a good few non-injuries. They finally have players coming back into their team. From a rugby perspective, once they settle down and play, there's a lot of potential here. There's a lot of potential here.
Is it? And as ever with a coach like John O'Gibbs coming in, with Ulster, it's the kind of mould that a coach would only love. They're dying to play rugby, dying to play with the ball,
and dying to win.
That's all. That's all they're coming out of last season with is a frustration that they didn't win. Yeah, they were trying to play and they were trying to do things, and just it didn't happen for them. They saw the sourness of those defeats, and had so many of those games where you can look back at any one of many moments where it's we should have done this differently, should have done that differently. And he'll come in with that same Cheika mindset of right, we'll shore up these basics here, these things you can control. Why didn't you exit that time when you were 3 points up and you were trying to close out the game, and then suddenly you coughed this up and now it's scrum time here. All these little moments he'll focus on, get them focused around that idea.
And the other thing is just being confident in playing and not shutting up shop.
Well, I saw confidence in the way they were playing in that game.
They found the try.
Those offloads.
Yes.
That try was immense. What a try that was. Who dotted it down? Who was it?
I think it was at Herring. It was replacement hooker.
But it was just such a lovely score. That break around the outside.
It was
McCluskey on those wide channels
with Tommy Bowe.
Yeah,
and that was the link.
And Bowe finding the inside pass, not dying with the ball either, not being satisfied. Didn't get his carry stat though. Neither of them did. This is it. That wasn't a carry for.
Well, there you go.
It was a try though, which I suppose counts.
The link play is glorious, and those two should start. Are certainly for me front runners for 12 and 13 for Ireland in the absence of the incumbents due to injury. So glorious thing and a glorious game. And the Pro14, like we were talking earlier about the Magners League, the Pro14 is so much better than the Magners League. Yeah. It's such a cool league. It's like our own little Super Rugby. There's so many good teams and so many cool matches.
And the dynamic. And I've heard the criticism. We had a comment on the last one about the Cheetahs as well. And we were kind of maybe a little too. We're trying to see the positives of having them in, and the Cheetahs are definitely the more positive of those two teams, because the Southern Kings are going to be propping up the bottom of that conference. They're nothing. They've not got it.
Yeah.
But the Cheetahs, I do think, have the potential to be trouble for some teams, particularly in the Six Nations when teams are traveling. If teams, and there will be flukes of the calendar, I don't know who it is, we haven't checked, but someone's going to have to go to South Africa during the Six Nations with a weakened team, and that's going to be a tough ask for any of them.
Yeah.
And Leinster playing them this weekend. That's the game we have coming up as well. We're playing the Cheetahs. I'm curious to see how that'll look. And this is it. They're Leinster, like first game of the tournament when they were playing. Like they add that different dynamic. We were curious about that. Will it look like that super rugby game that they have, or will they get sucked into it?
Obviously, last week they got monstered, and that's happened to many a team.
Yeah,
but the first week against Ulster, they scored some tries, they caused some problems, and it was like 42-19, but it was definitely an ebb and flowy game. And I think we're just starting to come to terms with the fact that Ulster are genuinely contenders this year and a real quality team, and that's what I saw in that first match was a lot of actual quality. So I'm confident that the Cheetahs can do some stuff. Not this week, I think they get stuffed, but going forward they can. Just to wrap up what happened last week, the other games were Leinster, Munster and Glasgow. None of them convincing, but all of them
it was one of those kinds of all of them were kind of those games that we have around this time of year, and it's good to see that those are still remaining in in this new look tournament. You do have the guy. It's one of those games where you're expected to win. You know you should win. To be honest, it almost feels like an inevitability that the win's going to come anyway, and as such, the execution is just not on the level.
And that was true for all three of them.
All three of them enjoying all the control in the game. They have all the ball. They have all the time in the ball.
Cardiff nearly beat Glasgow. Glasgow just eked over the line.
That's true, actually.
And Ospreys, Munster were always going to beat Ospreys, but they only ended up doing it by 4 points.
They only did, but that was by their. This is it. It all felt like in their own control. It was their own fuck ups that prevented the tries. It wasn't good defensive displays. Certainly with Leinster, that was it. That was a very frustrating watch. Was that against the Kings?
Poor game.
And this is why the Kings, I don't think, are going to offer anything, because they were comical in some of the errors they made, and it was literally any time we made an error, and we made many errors, they just doubled down. It was almost like I'll raise you this error, and they'd make some kind of pratfally type.
It was difficult. It was difficult to overestimate how poor the standard was in that game.
For professional rugby players, you go down to some of the club games that go on in this country, and the standard is much better than what the Kings are doing.
Well, just basic things like catch pass.
Catching for one, or not even catching but holding. There are people just running towards contact and it's falling out like a bar of soap. And it's all curiously enough, they always seem to make a juggling act of it. It seems like you could put Benny Hill music to some of what they're doing and it would be fitting. So
some decent players, but a decent 10. Your man was good at 10.
He does look reasonably short, but it's just I don't know if they're going to have
the right winger was a catastrophe. I can't remember his name.
I can't remember his name, but the first thing that happened was him jumping into the air and going huh, and the ball bouncing a metre or so to his right, and it's just and you're right, what am I looking at here?
Leinster were very poor, but they won, and they got their bonus
points, so it's 5 points. It's fixture done.
This is what Leinster do. I mean, this is such typical September stuff from Leinster, so I mean, I wouldn't worry about it.
No,
the only thing I was not the All Blacks didn't
nail them, and they let that try in, and it was just after a period of defending, and they just softed it out, and it was no, and I was so angry looking at it. It was exactly what made after a game like that, the only saving grace would have been well, don't let them in. And they did. So it was fuck's sake. But ultimately it doesn't matter, and they can kind of comfort themselves with the notion that they got out of there with 5 points and job done.
There's a few good games this week. There's a few games that could go anyway. Well, Cheetahs Leinster's good. Glasgow Munster's obviously
Glasgow Munster, that's a game.
Munster travelling to Glasgow is a proper early test.
It is on that pitch that they have. That
I wonder will Hoggy be fit?
I don't know.
Stuart Hogg, is he back? Where's Hogg?
Rennie's only dying to have his little mini Mackenzie version in him.
Hogg is not there. Rory Jackson is still
Rory Jackson at 15.
Still a tight little team. Ali Price and scrum half Finn Russell, Peter Horn, and no Seymour either. Tim Swinson. Oh, Munster could be favourites. Looking at that Glasgow team, it's tough. It's going to be a great game.
Where's Chris Farrell from? Is he Irish? That Munster 13 new lad we've seen this season.
Yeah.
He's dotted down a few tries. He looks a big unit. And what's the name of their winger who looks excellent?
Alex Wooten.
Alex Wooten. Looks a legit player and a legit ball player, which is something good to see in a Munster jersey. But Conway at 15 as well. There's the makings of some back play in there.
Conway is actually coming into his own these days.
He's a very good
playing
player.
Very well. But Yeah, Munster probably favourites for that, but it's going to be a great game. 2 heavyweights, proper heavyweight clash. Looking forward to that one. Elsewhere, we have Treviso. I think Marty
Ulster Dragons is an interesting one.
Yeah, Ulster are going to do a job on
Ulster
Dragons.
should do a job on Dragons. It would be a disappointment after all that being said about Ulster. Like they could.
I don't think they're going to lose to Dragons at Raven.
I don't think they're going to lose. They could struggle. That's what I fear. I fear it could be a scrappy affair instead of a beautiful game.
Yeah.
What?
I'm just looking at their team.
Right.
The Noli Alafano, it's Peter Nelson at 10, and then it's McCluskey and Cave in the centre. It's a way to break up the band. Tommy Bowe's on the right wing, so hopefully Cave will just get out of the way.
Ship it on.
Let McCluskey and Bowe link up in those wide channels, and then Piatow obviously as well. So that's fine. That's stuff.
Nah, it's a good team. They should win comfortably.
But absolutely, the game of the weekend is Munster Glasgow. And now we got to wrap up because we're here a while, but we're going to talk Premiership, what happened this week. I only watched one game, which was the Curiosity in Philly. That just like, I don't know what was going on. Why were they playing it there? The stadium was half empty. And I was just a bit mad. I don't know what was going on playing a game in Philadelphia. It was Newcastle's home game as well, but they were playing Saracens, and it was like they tried to make an event of it, but the stadium wasn't full. And Saracens just won.
Is rugby big in Philadelphia?
Yeah,
evidently not.
And then Saracens won like 29-7, and it was just like Saracens are just Saracens. They were not putting on a show for anyone. They were just
winning the game,
going through the motions and beating Newcastle into submission.
Well, as you would expect.
Yes.
Saracens beat Newcastle
into submission, and they did. And
the only curiosity of it is it happened across the pond.
Yes,
and it did.
And Quins beating Wasps, and Wasps is a bit of a shock. Quins obviously have a better squad this year, so hopefully that'll be.
There's competitiveness to that league. That's one of those. The Premiership is one of those leagues where it seems to go in streaks of form as well. Certain clubs play well at certain times, and they can all get wins against each other for the most part, apart from the very bottom end of the run where they just can't grab results against the top end. But it's a curious league in that regard in terms of it does.
We don't have it. This is our problem. We don't have BT Sports. We don't get to see that much of it.
Yeah.
But I did made a point of watching that Sarries game, which is fine, I guess. And Leicester won their first game of the season, but they're probably going to lose this week to Quins, so I wouldn't be hopping on that bandwagon. Exeter looking tidy win for Northampton as well. So that's what happened there.
Exeter looking like they're motoring towards European rugby with a bit of momentum.
Well, like not quite as much momentum as our other group prospect.
Montpellier stuffing Toulon, getting Boujalal all in a tizzy.
Yeah, we'll talk about it in a moment. But Montpellier are like crushing really good teams, like a steam train. They have come into this team like they've just Nemani Ndolo is the embodiment of everything they're doing right now. Just bull rushing, try finding, monstering, and they're a beautiful team to watch and flow, and they're a bullying team, and like Leinster Montpellier is like game of the season stuff.
Beautiful
right there.
Stuff for a rugby fan. This is it.
To get that in October, it's going to be some stuff.
And it's literally going to come down to who's on it on the day. Like, are there going to be, as often with these clashes in the group games in Europe, one of the teams doesn't pay it the same focus or have that same urgency about them as the other team, and that's the team that ends up losing.
Both teams are going to be so on, because Montpellier are obviously jaded by what happened last year to them, and Leinster are obviously Europe is
the be all and end all.
It is our lifeblood, and we understand that this is the game. Whatever about the fact that we're playing Edinburgh at Christmas, that's just wrong. Exeter even at Christmas, that's just wrong. The game is Montpellier. Exeter are good too, and they're the potential banana skin in terms of mental slip ups. They're the potential banana skin, but we'll be up for that Montpellier game.
We will.
But no Ross Byrne at 10, please,
Lord. Please, not Ross Byrne at 10. Sexton. This is an issue. We should talk about it because we've shied away from the Leinster discussion. But Leinster are looking good with that 12 thing. I like how we've patched up the midfield a little bit. Still not convinced by Rory O'Loughlin as a 13.
Now it's Noel Reid. Who I like at 13 actually. I think it'll be fine. Issa can lead the defence from 12. Starting to see 12 lead defences, I like that.
Yeah, it makes more sense. Yeah,
and the 13s usually lead them.
I still think there's openness for that telepathy in and communication between the two, and have the two of them be that defensive force in the face, and it's even better, surely.
But usually there's one leader. in terms of that communication. It's kind of a follow me vibe.
Yeah. I do like leaving it open. Well, obviously, another false thing is to have like a defensive system, which we found out in the World Cup because Ireland literally just defended one way and one way alone, and that was not the right tools for the job when you're defending against Argentina. So I do like leaving it open for the 13 to make those shoots. Yes. I think that plays into their hands and gets them reading the game.
But Issa makes the shoots for Leinster.
Yes, he does. 12. And he makes the more physical hits, which is why it's good to have him do it. Yeah. But like when Sexton's playing, he makes shoots as well. And he's a bit of a weird one. It's a bit of a him on his own thing. It's no system there. It's just Sexton fancies hitting someone. Yeah. And he does, though. And fair play to him.
I'll tell you what, though, Leinster are going to need Sexton at 10. They are. Because they're not going to pick Carberry.
Just pick fucking Cathal Marsh, like the South African said in the highlights back. We literally finally got to find a little bit of South African commentary for the game just gone against the Kings, and it was like the one time we scored a try that was free flowing back play with a little bit of interplay with 10 and centres. It was Cathal Marsh.
Cathal Marsh is the great little guy who we like at 10, who's not getting given credit over Ross Byrne, and he's getting his game time. I think we mentioned him last week, Cathal Marsh. Now we want him to be playing, but the little South African commentator was like, "Oh, that's lovely from Marsh, little sleight of hand," and that was what made the try.
And it was like good, lovely to see that recognised. Come on, Leo. Come on, Stuart. You know rugby. You are looking at the same thing as we are. Ross Byrne stands too deep.
Yeah, they're
for a Leinster team as well. This is it. Like we've always had Felipe Contepomies at 10. We've always had pioneers of the attritional in-your-face 10s who take it to the line. Yeah. And it needs to be that way. We cannot have a Stephen Myler sitting deep kicking the ball.
Yeah, and
that's what Ross Byrne is doing.
His instinct is to kick. He's a problem, I agree. Hopefully Sexton will be back. Because Sexton's not even injured. He's just sextoning. Like, he's just away.
This is a Ben Smith type hiatus by the IRFU.
But we want him back for October. I mean, I know ifs, ands, or buts about it. We need him for that game.
Me too.
So
if we're going to play against that Montpellier team, we're going to want to be in full.
So then,
gear.
like, if you're talking about a team that's actually like Sexton, Issa, Sexta, I guess, could work at 10 and 12, and then find a 13, and then you have like any number of great players in the back three. Carberry's going to be settled in at 15, I'd say, by then. James Lowe, hopefully on a wing. Adam Byrne, hopefully on a wing. James Lowe will be marking Nadolo. If we have any sense. Yeah. If he can come into the team now and mark Nadolo, I think he's definitely better than any of the incumbent wingers at doing that job.
Doing just that job, yeah.
So
he'll have a recognition from his experience in the top in Super Rugby, a recognition of what's required in terms of defending those classy wingers who are always looking to score tries up your channel. Yeah. He's very familiar with that.
Yeah.
Whereas we are less so. That is one thing that the Northern Hemisphere is just. And it goes back to that. It's less focused on classy wingers grabbing 7-pointers because we are grinding out games, particularly when you look at French rugby.
The wingers have a more Keith Earlsian look to them.
They do.
Than the giant Polynesians who love to score tries.
Jack Noel workhorses.
Yes, but absolutely Leinster in decent shape, going to beat the Chiefs. Yeah. But
it's all
Exeter grand. Montpellier moving like a steam train.
La Rochelle
winning away. They don't seem to be stopping. So
no.
Good for them. Obviously,
I think it's good for the league as well. I like the new blood look to them. I kind of like the team they put together. Yeah, and it feels like a misfit toys buzz from other talk. They've been released from franchises in the same league before, and they've all come together to La Rochelle to try and beat them.
Yeah, so it's all a bit mad. It
is my least favourite of all the European leagues, if I'm honest.
It's good to see Clermont bounce back and put 60 on Brive to cheer themselves up after a rough week.
Yeah, not good to know they're not down and out. Well.
To be honest, I think we're reaching the end here. I always have this whole thing about Bougela, which you may have read, and the news story about Sean O'Brien as well, talking about the Lions.
Sean O'Brien.
We'll talk about it, I think, next week. I'm kind of running out of steam here. We're going for an hour and a half.
An hour and a half, yeah. So it's a long old thing. We will wrap it up then, I guess. All we'll say is just Bougela is a little shit. And
Bougela is a disgrace. Like, it's those comments that, like, I'll just give a little precursor to what I'm going to say next week. You cannot talk about players like that
in the press, especially.
Talking to a journalist about a player like that, and you're not even a coach, and you don't even understand what rugby is, and you've never played a game in your life, and like, to talk like that, like the cluelessness,
the dismissiveness of it as well.
Talking about, like, he was talking about Chucky being overweight, And I was like, maybe it's true, maybe it's not. It's certainly something that needs to be addressed between you, the coach, and him in private, if it is true.
Yeah, not speculated out loud in front
and then the
of
other things like just
journalist.
criticising a Georgian prop for getting beat up in the scrum by Montpellier, who are like
a class outfit.
Yeah, exactly.
There's never that self-reflection with him though. He just seems to get I'm thinking child, I'm thinking pram, I'm thinking rattle. Whenever Toulon lose in embarrassing fashion, that's where he immediately goes. And there's inevitably a story like this of him being
because he goes out
tosser
and
in some
blames
way,
someone,
shape or form,
be it a referee or like an
straight
opposition.
away. He's always
or,
pointing fingers. And he's a little shitebag who's ruined French rugby, so I have no sympathy at all.
He's the worst thing to happen to rugby union, and he's still around.
Yeah.
Anyway,
and with that little diatribe, up too long.
Yeah, it was a bit of a tangential one, but I liked the stuff on New Zealand and I liked the stuff on the Boks. And that was what the meat of the podcast was, and then it probably got a bit waffly. But we'll be back next week.
We will be back with more of a Eurocentric podcast, I guess.
We'll be previewing the games.
We will be previewing them, but I think we'll be reflecting on this weekend's action.
Yeah, I think we might start with that just to change it up. We usually start with the Rugby Championship. I suppose next week we'll start with European rugby.
Yeah.
So we'll get into the flow of European rugby and then go to the Rugby Championship previews. That seems to make a lot of sense. Tell us how the audio was, if there's any of you still watching.
Yeah. Because this is relatively new. This was just an idea because I know in the last podcast, apologies as well, there was some problem with my mic. The settings on my mic were odd and it just didn't come out right. I was too loud and I think there was a little echo on it. But
it's one of these frustrating things. Is like we're always paranoid about how well we're doing, or whether we're doing things right, or whether we're talking right, or whether we're like just having conversations amongst ourselves that you guys would need more context for, and that's kind of a weird thing. But like certainly it seems that whenever we feel like we've got it right, that's when an audio issue pops up.
Exactly.
And it's really frustrating.
It's
like
very
when we're really happy with the podcast and then we listen back to it and it's like, it's difficult to listen to.
Yeah.
And that's just so frustrating.
That's been
so this is what we're trying to fix.
So let us know if this worked. Let us know what you think of the new layout. Let us know if anything you change or anything you think. But thanks for the comments as well. You are not throwing that at the camera.
No.
But yeah, we got a few comments. We were glad to respond. We'll try and keep that. Try and get some threads going. So yeah, share, subscribe, comment,
do all of those lovely things, especially comments. I love seeing the comments. We got a few comments in the last video, and we're doing our best to respond to them all. And yeah, it would be cool because we have like 30 odd subscribers. It'd be cool just to have a close little rugby nerd community.
Yeah,
and I'd love to know where you're from as well. I'd love to say that because
let us know when you're commenting, where you're commenting from.
Because I'm curious to see, like, because we're getting obviously Northern Hemisphere season starting, but we got a comment the other day on a video from months ago again. Nice to see you guys. I can't wait to hear what you have to say on next year's Super Rugby because I missed you this year.
Yeah,
that's kind of cool. It's like cool to think we have New Zealanders and people like that and just globally united by a love of the game.
Exactly.
So we're a little obscure podcast and it would be cool to know where you're from.
Yeah. So with that little
whatever,
we're going to wrap up. So see you next week.
Take care, folks.
Bye.
See you. Bye.
No. Wide.
Comfortably wide. Rugby.